I welcome you all to this video lecture. I am Dr. Kanchi Bajpai, an assistant professor, guest faculty in the Department of English, Pandit Sundarlal Sharma, Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. Today, we will be learning Indian writings in English, and that is the part 2 of this video. Before moving forward, let's have a recap of part 1. In part 1, we have already dealt with these chapters, which are English language, Macaulay's role in promoting the English language, what do you mean by Indian English literature, what is Indian writings in English literature, with examples of Ram Mohan Roy and his works, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee and his works. Next, we will have a discussion on growth of Indian novel and drama, what are the 4 phases of Indian writings in English. Next, at last, we will see a list of Indian writers in English and their work in this video. Now, let's begin with part 2. These are the list of some prominent writers along with the explanation. First author we will see is Kamla Markanday and explanation of her work Nectar in a Sieve. A celebrated name in the galaxy of women novelists of India, Kamla Markanday is an immigrant writer. Her 10 novels present remarkable range of characters from poor peasant women in Nectar in Sieve, through the urban of a handful of rice, to the higher class in the golden honeycomb. The conflict between tradition and modernity, East and West, runs through all of her novels. She also throws light on how the development is amounting to a kind of neo-colonialism and racial prejudice, of which she has first-hand experience. Against Indian immigrants in Britain, by writing Nectar in a Sieve, Markanday didn't transgress all boundaries that were previously set for writers. She was simply writing about a woman and her struggles in a context. It's remarkable that the works of Kamla Markanday include the contemporary, current and profound estimations of Indian social orders. Her works have uncovered the inherent troubles of womanhood and women's liberation in a particular and exceptional style. She additionally depicted through her written work that very presence of woman is convoluted and the condition is same all over the place. Rukmani and Nathan marry at a young age. They live in a house hut where poverty, the vagaries of the monsoon and hunger become part of their lives. The arrival of tannery in the village disrupts their peaceful life. This erodes the village's self-reliance but also brings some changes. Rukmani has several children, but their lives remain very difficult. One son lives to seek a job in the city, while another daughter is forced into prostitution due to poverty. In the final, due to poverty and hunger, they lose their home and go to the city to find their son, where they are subjected to theft. After Nathan's death, Rukmani returns to her village with an orphan boy Puli, who demonstrates her resilience and will to live. The second author is Jhumpa Lahiri and her work The Namesake. Jhumpa Lahiri is English-born American novelist and short story writer whose work illuminates the immigrant experience, in particular that of East Indians. Lahiri was born to Bengali parents from Kolkata. Her parents, her father a university librarian and her mother a school teacher, who moved to London and then to the United States, settling in South Kingstown, Rhode Island when she was young. The story of The Namesake is Ashok and Ashima Ganguly, a young Bengali couple, leave Calcutta, India and settle in Central Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Ashok is an engineering student at the MIT. Ashima struggles through language and cultural barriers as well as her own fears as she delivers her first child alone. Had the delivery taken place in Calcutta, she would have had the baby at home, surrounded by family. The delivery is successful, but the new parents learn they cannot leave the hospital before giving their son a legal name. The traditional naming process in their families is to have an elder who will give the new baby a new name, and the parents waited for the letter from Ashima's grandmother. The letter never arrives, and soon after the grandmother dies, Bengali culture calls for a child to have two names, a pet name to be called by family and a good name to be used in public. Ashok suggests the name of Gogol in honor of the famous Russian author Nikolai Gogol to be the baby's pet name, and they used this name on the birth certificate. As a young man, Ashok survived a train derailment with many fatalities. He had been reading a short story collection by Gogol just before the accident, and lying in the rubble of the accident, he clutched a single page of the story, The Overcoat, in his hand. With many broken bones and no strength to move or call out, dropping the crumpled page is the only thing Ashok can do to get the attention of medics looking for survivors. Though the pet name has deep significance for the baby's parents, it is never intended to be used by anyone other than family. They decided on Nikhil to be his good name. Gogol grows up, perplexed by his pet name. Entering kindergarten, the Gangulis inform their son that he will be known as Nikhil at school. The 5-year-old objects and school administrators intervene on his behalf, sending him home with a note pinned to his shirt stating that he would be called Gogol at school, as was his preference. By the time he turns 14, he starts to hate the name. His father tries once to explain the significance of it, but he senses that Gogol is not old enough to understand. As Gogol progresses through high school, he resents his name more and more for its oddness and the strange genius for whom he was named. When he informs his parents that he wishes to change his name, his father objects to the idea but reluctantly agrees. Shortly before leaving for college, Gogol legally changes his name to Nikhil Ganguly. This change in the name and Gogol's going to Yale rather than following his father's footsteps to MIT sets up the barriers between Gogol and his family. The distance, both geographically and emotionally, between Gogol and his parents continues to increase. He wants to be an American, not Bengali. He goes home less frequently, dates American girls, and becomes angry when anyone calls him Gogol. During his college years, he smokes cigarettes and marijuana, goes to many parties, and loses his virginity to a girl he cannot remember. As he is going home for the summer, Gogol's train is suddenly stopped and temporarily loses electricity. A man had jumped in front of the train and committed suicide, and the wait for the authorities causes a long delay. Ashok, who is waiting at the train station for Gogol, becomes very concerned when he calls the train company and hears of this incident when they pull into the Ganguly's driveway. Ashok turns off the car and finally explains the true significance of Gogol's name. Gogol is deeply troubled by this news, asking his father why he didn't tell him this earlier. He starts to regret changing his name and identity. After graduating from Columbia University, Gogol obtains a very small apartment in New York City, where he lands a job in an established architectural office. He is rather stiff personality-wise, perpetually angry, or else always on the lookout for someone to make a stereotypical comment about his background. At a party, Gogol meets a very attractive and outgoing girl named Maxine, with whom he begins a relationship. Maxine's parents are financially well off and live in a four-story house in New York City, with one floor occupied entirely by Maxine. Gogol moves in with her and becomes an accepted member of her family. When Maxine's parents visits her grandparents in the mountains of New Hampshire for the summer, they invite Maxine and Gogol to join them for a couple of weeks. Gogol introduces Maxine to his parents. Ashima dismisses Maxine as something that Gogol will eventually get over. Shortly after this meeting, Ashok dies of a heart attack while teaching in Ohio. Gogol travels to Ohio to gather his father's belongings and his father's ashes, and in attempting to sort out his emotions, Gogol gradually withdraws from Maxine and eventually breaking up with her. He begins to spend more time with his mother and sister Sonia. Later, Ashima suggests that Gogol contact Moshmi, the daughter of one of her friends, whom Gogol knew when they were children, and whose intended groom Graham broke up with her shortly before their wedding. Gogol is reluctant to meet with Moshmi because she is Bengali and does so anyway to please his mother. Moshmi and Gogol are attracted to one another and eventually are married. However, by the end of their first year of marriage, Moshmi becomes restless. She feels tired and tied down by marriage and begins to regret it. Gogol also feels like a poor substitute for Graham. Eventually, Moshmi has an affair with Dhimtri, an old acquaintance, the revelation of which leads to the end of their marriage, with Sonia preparing to marry her fiancé, an American named Ben. Gogol being alone, he is nonetheless comforted by the fact that Ashok, prior to his death, finally told his son why he had chosen that name for him. Gogol comes to accept his name and picks up a collection of the Russian authors' stories that his father had given him as a birthday present many years ago. Next author in this slide is Bharti Mukherjee, and explanation of her work, Jasmine. Bharti Mukherjee was an Indian-American Canadian writer and professor in the Department of English at the University of California, Berkeley. She was the author of a number of novels and short story collections, as well as works of non-fiction. Bharti was born into a wealthy Calcutta, now Kolkata family. She attended an Anglicized Bengali school from 1944 to 1948. The book Jasmine, published in the year 1989, begins with a 24-year-old narrator, Jane Ripplemeyer, that is Jasmine, living as the common law in Baden. Through flashbacks, she is the wife of Bud Ripplemeyer, a 54-year-old banker, recalled her story from childhood in Hasanpur, a village in Jalandhar district, Punjab, India, where she was born as Jyoti, the unwanted fifth daughter in a poor displaced Hindu family. Jasmine was a 7-year-old girl. An astrologist informed her that she will be widowed and exiled one day. The astrologer told the girl that one day she could not challenge the destiny. As Jasmine ran away from the astrologer, she fell and cut her forehead. This made it appear as if she had what the oracle called a third eye, a way of seeing things that others could not. In the story, she marries Prakash Vij at the age of 14, an engineering student and a modern city man who did not believe in the subservient role of the Indian wife. Prakash renamed her Jasmine and gradually molds her to become a new woman. Jasmine and Prakash lived in a small apartment in the city of Hasanpur, India. At home, Prakash studied for his new career in electronics. He and Jasmine had dreams for their life as co-owners of an electronics store one day. But Prakash revealed her that he had been accepted in a trade school in Tampa, Florida, and he showed Jasmine the brochures of Indian students standing in front of palm trees. Jasmine was not old enough to get a visa yet, so Prakash planned to work for a few years to went to America together. Her husband died of the bomb explosion. Rising up the death of her husband, Jasmine decided abroad to America by herself, pursuing her husband's dream. The conflict began when Jasmine illegally entered America by boarding in a fisherman's ship named the Gulf Shuttle. She was the only girl in the ship and got many bad treatments from the leader named the Half-Faced. After long days, Jasmine finally set her foot in the land of America. Sadly, she was raped by the leader of the ship on her first day in America. Her first day in America is rough. She did not know anything about America and she did not fluently speak English. Fortunately, she met a wild old lady named Lillian Gordon. The old lady gave Jasmine foods, water, and shelter for a few days. Lillian is a kind-hearted woman. She was taught Jasmine how to speak English, cooking hamburgers, and many things in how to be a good American. Lillian also taught her to act as American and told Jasmine to be confident and did not act suspiciously when in a public area. Finally, Jasmine decided to move to New York in order to pursue her goals. In New York, Jasmine lived in Professor Devinder Vadera's apartment. Her husband's siblings went back in Hasanpur, India. In the apartment, Jasmine lived with Professor Devinder families. Professor Devinder is a generous man. He made a green card for Jasmine in order to make her be a part of American citizen. Jasmine got her green card. With that green card, she was officially the citizen of America. She could get a job and pursue her goals. In the last part of the story, Jasmine had to choose between two men. One is the man whom she decided to spend the rest of her life with, and the other one is the one she truly loved. Finally, she decided to be with the one she loved and moved to California. She then changed her name as Jane Ripplemeyer and lived happily with her new husband. Jasmine is the main character of this novel, a character who evolves many times as the story goes. Jasmine is a tough and independent girl. She gets through many hard obstacles in her life. Being born in a poor family, her father died of a bull hit. Her husband died of a bomb and many other obstacles. She is also a brave woman. Now, V.S. Naipaul and his work A House for Mr. Viswas. V.S. Naipaul, born on August 17, 1932, Trinidad, died on August 11, 2018 at London, England. V.S. Naipaul was an Trinidadian writer of Indian descent, known for his pessimistic novels set in developing countries. For this revelations of what the Swedish Academy called suppressed histories, Naipaul won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2001. A House for Mr. Vishwas is a timeless novel by V.S. Naipaul. The story chronicles the life of Mohan Vishwas, a poor Indian descendant in Trinidad. The novel depicts his humiliating life, his slavery to the Tulsi family, and ultimately his lifelong struggle for a small but unforgettable home of his own, and his yearning for freedom. Mohan Vishwas is considered an unlucky man who battles misfortune and homelessness throughout his life. He is married into the Tulsi family, where he loses his identity and is forced to live a suffocating life with an overbearing family. The central theme of the novel is the pursuit of home ownership, a symbol of security, independence and personal dignity. In the end, he purchases a house, but it is the greatest success of his life, after which he passes away. The novel is a symbol of individual loneliness, family pressure and the human desire to create an identity through a home. Next, Arundhati Roy and her work Gods of Small Things. Susanna Arundhati Roy, born on 24th of November 1961, is an Indian author best known for her novel The Gods of Small Things, which was published in the year 1997 and won the Booker Prize for Fiction in 1997 and became the biggest selling book by a non-expatriate Indian author. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy is a tragic family saga set in Ayamman, Kerala. The story revolves around twins named Estha and Rahel and their mother Amu, who defy the caste system and family ties, that is love laws, to fall in love with Velutha, who is a Dalit. The novel explores love social taboos, and the profound impact small events can have on life. The story is set in Ayamman, Kerala. The main characters are twins Estha and Rahel. Amu, the children's mother, is a divorced woman who is not respected in her family. She is in love relationship with Velutha, an untouchable Dalit man who works in their family's factory. Cousin Sophie Mole drowns in a river. Velutha is blamed for the incident. Under pressure from a casteist society, Amu and Velutha's relationship breaks down. Velutha is murdered and the children are separated. This book explores how love and social rules determine who should be loved and how much. The novel explores the conflict between the caste system and human emotions. The story takes place between 1969 and 1993, showing how childhood events can become lifelong wounds. Next author is Anita Desai. Anita Desai is English language Indian novelist and author of children's book who excelled in evoking character and mood through visual images ranging from the meteorologic to the botanical. Anita Desai is an Indian novelist and short story writer. She has been writing some of the best English language fiction in India for almost 4 decades. She's been shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize thrice and won the Sahitya Academy Award, one of the India's most prestigious literary prizes. In 1978, for her second novel Fire on the Mountain, she has taught at various colleges in the US, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Familial relationship and their evolution have been the main theme of Desai's fiction. She has portrayed the complexities between a man and woman relationship. Her notable contributions are Cry, The Peacock, The Voices in the City, Fire on the Mountain, The Clear Light of Day, and Bye Bye Blackbird. This story is set in 1970s. The story is about Sophie and Mato, two wealthy Italian young people who travel to India on a lark. Mato, the more emotionally sensitive of the two, is quickly swept up in the spirituality of India, and eventually the couple find themselves in an ashram run by a spiritual leader called Mother. The conflicts created by the personal nature of a journey to enlightenment are manifest as Sophie and Mato produce 2 children. Mato is drawn into the rhythms and beliefs of Mother's ashram, but Sophie, the more practical and cynical of the pair, cannot fathom the attraction, let alone the quarrel and deprivation she experiences. Upset, she leaves India and returns to Italy with the children. In time, Sophie is summoned back to India because Mato is deathly ill. She leaves the children to go to him, sick as he is. Mato is an unrepentant follower of Mother and wishes only to continue his spiritual studies. Shocked and angered, Sophie begins her own journey to understand him. She literally traverses the world to learn who Mother is and how she came to command such devotion. She discovers that Mother was once a young Egyptian girl named Leila, and that even as a child Leila sought deeper meaning in life. While attending school in Paris, Leila encountered a troupe of Indian dancers and was taken into the group by charismatic male lead dancer Krishna. Through the troupe, she learned to employ her dance as a means to spirituality. The story of Leila and her ultimate arrival in India is interwoven with Sophie's search for her, and it introduces the third journey in the novel. Next, we will see about Rabindranath Tagore, who was born on 7th of May 1861 and died on 7th August 1941. Subrequest Gurudev was a Bengali polymath poet. He reshaped Bengali literature as well as music, with late Indian art with conceptual modernism. In the 19th century and 20th century, Tagore is one of the greatest lyric poets of the world, both from the point of view of quality and quantity. They are things of beauty and a source of joy forever. He inhales a lyric and a flower exhales fragrance. Even when his lyrics are admired for their spiritual ecstasy and not for their greatness as a work of art, This is so because his Gitanjali is mainly a collection of devotional lyrics and his world reputation is based largely on his work. In the Gitanjali, Rabindranath Tagore visualizes God as one who descends to the level of his creation and communicates with his devotees through various personae. The title Gitanjali itself means of offering of songs. These songs are used by the poet to express his communion with God through 9 forms of devotion. The Gitanjali expresses the poet's aspirations of mankind to communicate with God and to reach the God. The poem illustrates the most effective use of imagery, dramatic element and personification. Direct communication between the poet and God used as a poetic element by Tagore in the Gitanjali. Next is Sudha Kulkarni Murthy is renowned for her writing and active role in social services. Her flair for writing is evident in her books like Dollar Shows, originally written in Kannada. Her notable works include Wise and Otherwise and Mahasweta. Sudha, she now leads and head of the Infosys Foundation. She is an engineer, a teacher, writer, mother and wife. Sudha Murthy, the reputed wife of Infosys giant Narayan Murthy, has written a tenderly humorous account of their modest beginnings and their subsequent growth in life. Her account of her life before and after Narayan Murthy, the birth and growth of Infosys, and her novels in general provide an impetus and kindle positive thinking in her readers. Her work exudes simple realism and empathy. All the little things in life that go are the bird with golden wings. Written by Sudha Murthy is an instructive story that highlights the difference between kindness and greed. It tells the story of a poor girl who feeds her share of rice to a golden winged bird. The bird, pleased with her selflessness, rewards her, while her greedy neighbor suffers the consequences. The poor girl, who is kind, receives valuable gifts from the golden bird. The neighbor Kapila, who mistreats the bird solely for profit, ultimately harms herself. This story teaches that selfless service brings happiness, while greed only brings misfortune and trouble. This book is a collection of 21 short stories for children that teach lessons on morality and human values. Last author in this slide is Aravind Adiga, who was born on October 23, 1974, is an Indian author and journalist, best known for winning the 2008 Man Booker Prize for his debut novel The White Tiger. Born in Madras, now Chennai, and raised in Mangaluru. He studied at Columbia University and Oxford. His works, including novels like Selection Day, often explores themes of social injustice and corruption and divide India between the rich and poor now in modern India. Aravind Adiga's novel The White Tiger, published in the year 2008, tells the story of a lower class villager named Balram Halwai, who rises from poverty through murder and crime to become a successful entrepreneur in Bangalore. Through letters written to the Chinese Prime Minister, it explores India's class divide, corruption, and the conflict between darkness, the ruler poor, and light, the urban wealthy. The story starts with Balram Halwai, aka White Tiger, from a village in Lakshmangarh, Bihar, murders his employer Ashok and flees with the money. The novel is a sharp satire on India's caste system, the rich-poor divide, and corrupt politics. Balram works as a driver and witnesses the exploitation of the upper caste up close. He resorts the violence to escape this chicken coop, the cage of slavery. By the end of the story, Balram becomes the owner of a successful taxi service and has no regrets about his crime because he has achieved freedom. The novel, which won the Booker's Prize in 2008, depicts the socio-economic inequalities of modern capitalist India. That concludes today's lecture. Thank you for all joining me today. I hope to see you all soon.